Hi! So I got inspired today to do a little vlog about my fiddle. I've never really talked about it on my channel before, and mostly, I just post tutorial videos. But when I was researching this instrument originally, I wish I had found something like this, just someone talking about how they got their instrument and this particular brand of instrument. And so this is probably going to be a pretty long video, so you can get a cup of coffee with me and sit down and listen. And if you have any questions, you can follow me on Instagram. Most of my videos I post for children, so the comments are turned off. But my Instagram is Michaela Fiddle, and so feel free to message me on there or chat. So this is my instrument. I've had it almost a year now. I think I got it during quarantine. And I was like, it was like the first few months of quarantine, and I was like, oh my gosh, the monetary system's gonna fall apart. We won't be able to order things online anymore. I better just go for it and order this. So I had kind of quarantine panic buying vibes. So I ended up buying this instrument online. I bought it on Reverb. And I knew at that point I really wanted a 5-string fiddle. So this is a 5-string instrument. And I did a little bit of research and I saw like just what was online. I had, about $1,500 to spend on an instrument, which is not a whole lot. So I couldn't get anything like custom made. So there's just a couple brands of 5-string instruments. And this one actually is a Dahlia 5. So Dahlia like the flower. And they call it a violin, but it's actually a viola size. So a normal instrument, a violin, is 14 inches, and this one is 15 and a half. So it is significantly bigger, which is actually my favorite thing about this instrument, is the size. I have like super long arms and a long neck. And so having like that extra length here has actually helped me with a lot of my shoulder pain. So when I was playing violin, I was a little more like cramped in here. And so then when I was trying to move to the different strings, it was a lot smaller and I didn't have as much like range of motion. So with this one, my arm is all the way out here, which on a normal violin it'd be about here. So I really like the extra length on here. I also got like a really tall chin rest. This is an SAS brand, which I really recommend. You can change the angle here and you can get them on different heights. This is the tallest one. That has helped a lot with my neck pain as well. So I definitely recommend, if you're a taller person, to look into maybe getting a viola. There's 2 brands of this instrument, or 2 models of this brand. Can't quite remember now. It's like the luthier shop, but if you look up Dahlia 5, you'll find it. And they have a London, that's the other brand, model. They have a London 5-string, which looks more like a traditional violin with like the pointed corners on both sides. And then the Dahlia has this kind of like rounded edge, which I think is really pretty. And so yeah, what I don't recommend about my experience is buying an instrument from like a secondhand shop, buying something this expensive, from just like a, random seller on the internet. I did not have a great experience with that. So I bought this off of Reverb, and I've had good experiences on Reverb, like buying cables or buying, cheap percussion instruments, small things. Nothing really wrong with that. But if you're gonna go and buy a violin, buy like an instrument worth several hundred to several $1,000s, I would really recommend going either to a professional violin shop that specializes in violins and string instruments, or a maker, someone who, their job is as a luthier making violins for a living, because they'll take care of you. You have like a sort of a warranty process where, if the instrument, you play it for a few months and something happens, they'll fix it for you, because that's their reputation on the line. And so, live and learn, right? There's actually a great outcome to the end of this story, but the way it started is I ordered this instrument. There was 2 of these on Reverb, and I tried to buy the one that was a little less expensive and the pictures looked better. And then they were like, oh, sorry, we can't ship because it's COVID and we can't go to the post office or something like that. And it was like an older man trying to sell his instrument. And so I was like, okay, fine. And then I just kind of went and bought the other one without looking into the listing as much, because I had already decided, okay, this is the brand I want. I want this Dahlia 5. It's going to be great for me. And I liked the look of the side scroll, and I was super pumped about it. So I just went and bought the other one that was on Reverb. And it arrived pretty quickly in like a week or two, and I got it out of the box. And it's the first thing I noticed is that there was like a little crack right here. This was coming apart. At that point, I didn't really think very much of it. I was like, oh, that's probably fine. I'll like take it to my luthier and she can look at it and just tell me what's up. And also the bridge was like sliding to the side. So what I did, because I, think that I'm a luthier, I do know a lot about instruments. And for like my students, like really kind of older school instruments, sometimes I do make little repairs on my own, because the instruments are like worth maybe $200 and the repair would be $100. So I might as well just do my best to fix it myself. So I was thinking that, and I took the tailpiece off, and I just kind of tightened it a little bit so that on one side, so it would stop sliding. So I did fix the fact that the bridge kept being pulled to the side, because the tailpiece was like unevenly tightened. So like one end of it was tighter than the other, so it was like pulling to the side. So I fixed that. But then as I was fixing that, the sound post on the inside fell over, and I actually did manage to put it back up by myself, which I have never ever done besides this time. But I was sitting there like obsessively trying to put it back up. It took me like 3 hours, maybe 4, which is really hard to do. And I'm sure I didn't get it up in the right place, but I like needed to play the instrument. And so, I got the sound post back up, I put it all back together, and I was playing it for probably like 2 months before I was able to actually see my luthier. Because as I said, it was like the beginning of quarantine, and so she had shut down her shop, and she was like, so sorry, but I can't take in any instruments right now until things have calmed down and I know what's going on a little more. So she wouldn't take my instrument, she wouldn't see it. So I just had to wait, but I needed to play it, so I did my best setting it up myself. And so this is probably my biggest piece of advice in this video, if you're still sitting here watching with me, is take your instrument to a professional to get it looked at, no matter where you buy it. Like if you're like, oh, I got this instrument from my grandpa, or, I bought this at a local music shop. A lot of the times, like, music shops will be like, yeah, we sell violins, but they don't really know how to set them up properly. Maybe they're really a guitar person, or they're really a winds person or percussion, but they have a music shop, and so they figure they should sell violins and violas and stuff. But really, you should have like a 4-year degree or more in very specifically bowed string instruments in order to properly set them up. So I get this instrument, it has all sorts of issues, right? It's got this crack. It's got, I noticed like here on the nut when I got it, like the G string was a little closer to the C string, so I couldn't quite I couldn't play the G string without hitting the C string too, or it was really hard. The margin was like really small. So there's all sorts of funky little issues with it. And it was like a brand new, I think it was like $1,300, something like that, a little bit less. And this is like an old model as well. The newer ones now, I think they've made some updates to it, and they're closer to like 25, 27, something like that, $100. And so, it's a factory made instrument, and it was one of their older models. It doesn't have like the year on the inside, but I think the seller said it was like 2006 or something like that. Anyways, so I end up finally being able to see my luthier, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's a huge deal that the neck is separating from the back, like you need to stop playing it immediately. And so I know now that there's a block on the inside, there's a wooden block here, and basically that holds the bulk of the instrument together, right? So you've got the two main parts of the instrument are like the neck and the body, and the strings, of course, are connected. There's a lot of tension here, right? That's pulling a lot. So the strings are connected into the peg box here, and then connected to the tailpiece here. So the majority of the tension, the pressure, is actually right here on this wooden block on the inside of the violin here. And so what had happened is when they shipped it to me, this like seller on the internet, they put it in a viola case that was too small for it. And because it's a little bit taller, and it had, while it was shipping, it had pushed down on the strings this way and the bridge, and it had separated during shipping. So when I went back to the seller, I was like, hey, like, I didn't realize this was such a big deal, but this is separating from the back, like, blah, blah, blah. You sent me an instrument that's broken. And they're like, sorry, it's been past the 1 week that we have. I could have told them in a week and they would have accepted it, but it was like 2 or 3 months later. And they were like, no, sorry, we can't do anything. You know, you're out. You're sorry. Your $1,400 are gone. You know, have fun. So I was like panicking at that point because that was like my budget for an instrument and that was it. And now I had this instrument that like wouldn't work. I was freaking out. So anyways, my luthier, thank goodness for her, she just saved my butt. She was like, okay, so she was telling me like that's a really intense repair. It can cost basically as much as I paid for the instrument to get it fixed. And so at this point I'm like devastated and kind of losing my mind. She's like, but you should reach out to my school. And so she sent me to her school, the American Violin School or something like that. And they might be able to do the repairs in a class and use it as an example in their repair class. And they might be able to do it for a lot cheaper. And so I reached out to them. First they were like, no, sorry, we can't do that. And so I was like, okay, I'm screwed. Like, here I am again with this broken instrument. And I had sold my other violin at that point to pay for this one. So I was like kind of panicking. But my luthier, she lent me a violin. And actually my teacher was also like, I'll send you a violin. Like, we'll get you something to play. Like, don't worry. So I had an instrument to play. And then the school reached out to me a couple weeks later. It was like a different teacher. And they're like, yes, actually, we do want your instrument. So after like feeling like I was just at the end of my rope, they reached out to me and they said, yes, we'll fix it. We'll do all the repairs on it for $500, but you have to pay for shipping. So I shipped it to them. It was like $150 to ship it. And I had a new case for it, by the way, at that point. So the case that I got was much bigger and wasn't putting any pressure on it. So here's what they did. I'm so grateful for all the repairs that they did on this instrument. So I sent it to them. The main thing was that this was cracked here, and they told me that the block on the inside was actually separating. So that means they took it all apart. They re-glued the block. They redid this main structural part here so that the neck was solidly connected. They recut the sound post on the inside. So there's a new sound post in there. They recut the bridge so the angle of it is so I can hit all the strings really evenly. So the angle, they recut the bridge, they recut the nut. So it's a new nut in there. They take that piece out. They recut all of the, the little grooves in there so it's really evenly spaced out. It's actually the same spacing as a normal violin, as like a standard violin, but the neck is wider to accommodate the extra string. They also recut all the peg holes so you can kind of see the like light lines there. They refilled all the holes and then recut the holes so that they're evenly spaced out here. And yeah, I think that's it. That's what they did. But like really like major stuff that would have cost me like $1,500 plus. And they did it all for $500 because it was an example for a class. So the teacher like did it with the help of students. They used it as a learning opportunity, but I got like professional repairs done on it. So I'm just so grateful for that. And it's actually in better condition than it would have been, if that had not happened. So overall, like really happy that, I was able to get all those repairs done and it didn't completely like bankrupt me in order to have a really reliable, amazing sounding 5-string instrument. And I love playing it. It feels like it feels fantastic now. The response is wonderful. It sounds really beautiful. Still, like someday I'm planning to upgrade eventually to get like a custom made 5-string, but this one is just so awesome for me. And I guess my main moral of the story is make friends with your luthier. Like meet someone who's studied, if you're, a violinist or a violist, like meet someone who studied making instruments because it's just so nice to have someone you trust to ask questions, to be like, what should this cost? Am I getting ripped off? Is this, you know, I've taken instruments to her and been like, oh, I want to buy a viola. Is this a good viola? And she'll be like, LOL, no, there's cracks here and problems here. And like, don't buy this. It's not worth what they're asking for. So like, it's just so important to know people in the field who really know how to make instruments and what a good, what goes into properly setting up an instrument. And no matter where you buy your instrument from, especially if you buy it online, take it to a shop afterwards for them to check the setup. A lot of the times they'll do it for free. Like they'll just check to make sure your sound post is in the right spot. It'll slide around. It's not glued in there or anything. It's just like placed in there, and then the pressure, you know, just holds it in place. So even if you buy an instrument from a good shop online, after they ship it, it's likely things moved around. So take it to a shop, be like, hey, will you check my setup? A violin specific shop, or like viola, cello, whatever. Somewhere that's specific. Like your local music shop, fantastic for buying strings or whatever you need, buying a case, but they probably don't know how to properly set up an instrument unless you like, oh, do you have a violin luthier who works here? And if they say no, then take it to a violin specific shop or take it to a luthier. And they'll check it. Usually they'll check that for free. You know, they'll check the bridge. And like recutting a bridge, that can change everything. And that's like a $50 repair. So I would really highly recommend anywhere you buy an instrument, take it to a luthier in person, like local, so they can check it without having to ship it back to you, because shipping just messes everything up. And yeah, don't buy an instrument that expensive off of Reverb, because you don't really know what you're gonna get in the mail. And yeah, keep playing, have fun, go practice. Peace out.